So I think we have talked about velocity. We have talked about acceleration. So it's really great to be here after 1 year, after doing all this development, and to see the new potential that we have with 5G. 5G now it's a young adult. You know, it's maybe 1/3 in its life before we go to 6G. And what is great is that when you become a new adult, you have new capabilities. You have new superpowers that are building up on what you can do. So let's look at those superpowers. First, 5G mmWave is now commercial in all the parts of the world. It started with US, it went into Japan, and then for a moment, people were thinking, oh, US, Japan, Japan, US, US, Japan. It was a ping pong. But here what we are seeing now is that it's starting to go into the rest of the world. And I don't need to insist because there was a fabulous panel of operators from all around the world that have demonstrated this. What I want to see, what I want to say, because we are in a technology workshop, is that the combination of band that are now emerging are around the 26 gigahertz market. Not only for the mmWave band, but also for the sub-6 and for LTE, we are sharing all the same bands in Australia, in Europe, in Latin America, in India, and in China. So it means in terms of economies of scale, when this new market, the 26 gigahertz market, is coming up, there is a big economies of scale that we can enjoy from the whole industry. So this economy of scale will be no better position on the first part of the slide, on the left-hand part of the slide, than in fixed wireless access. We heard publicly Reliance Jio saying that they want to bring extreme mobile broadband using 5G mmWave in the top 100 million homes in India. So we are going to talk about fixed wireless access being a famous use case. At the moment, they can reach only 7 million of those homes using fiber due to the economics. So from 7 to 100 million, this is what we are going to talk when we talk about fixed wireless access and wireless fiber. The middle part, I will come back on that. This is about providing the best quality of experience in what a lot of the speakers before me talked about, which is in venues, transportation hubs, and high-density locations in general. I will come back on that. And the last-hand part, the two other parts, were what we have discussed in private networks, but also think about indoor enterprise with free-up mobility and powering the hybrid work. So when we are translating those three major use cases, fixed wireless access, high-density locations with mobility, with nomadic use and mobility, and the enterprise world, you are entering into the device ecosystem. Ecosystem is a very used word for a lot of topics. But when you see that there are 65 plus vendors, 65 different companies that are doing some form of mmWave devices, I would argue that this is what I call an ecosystem. It's really living and breathing, and from the top brand to the less known companies, they are all bringing to life some form of devices or another. And we are very proud at this Mobile World Congress, thanks to the network that is brought by Telefonica and Ericsson, that on our booth, we are able to show not only the smartphone live, but also mmWave PCs, and also mmWave hotspots like MiFi router for SMEs, for example, and also finally fixed wireless access CPEs and module that you can plug for private networks into a surveillance camera, into an AGVs, etc. All these types of devices are live on our booth, and it shows concurrently, actually, in parallel, because of the great throughput that is brought by Telefonica and Ericsson. So what does it bring for the consumer if I spend a bit more time on the middle part of the use cases, the mobility use cases? The consumer are telling us, we did a survey, and GSMA Intelligence wrote a few articles and a few reports on that in deep analysis. 3 of the top 5 pain points that the consumer interviewed were telling us about is crowds. You see at the top, the second one is about crowds, and the 5th one is about crowds. So they certainly have an issue in crowded location to experience the best quality of service. The perceived experience for them is less than ideal. So that's why naturally you have heard from many of the operators the importance. Sorry, I will go one step before the importance of serving those dense areas in a better way. But we have also heard something else. We have heard the importance of latency in many of those use cases. And I think Juan mentioned that there was a big difference in the private network between the air interface. The latency could reach 1.6 milliseconds when the device was also optimized. So it's important to underline that we are spending a lot of time to optimize the on-device capability, the intelligence that is residing on the device. But you also need, especially in the AR configuration, to ask the cloud, what should I put on the augmented reality? So the cloud is optimized with MEC, for example. We are bringing a lot of content as close as possible to the edge of the network. But in order to have a connected, intelligent edge, so in order to connect those two intelligence, the weak link would be the air interface. So to that extent, it's super important to also optimize the air interface. And what's a better technology than the one that is providing the best throughput and the best latency? So when you are mixing those two aspects, the throughput and the latency that is provided by the air interface, then you have the possibility to have the best, to offer to your customer as an operator, the best possible quality of experience wherever your subscribers are located. We are saying, you don't need to put mmWave in non-congested places, because 5G midband, as you can see in the green bar, is serving it quite naturally well. It's the way, 5G midband. So you have a kind of a very good quality of experience. But when you go to the congested place, you go down to 44, according to Ookla, 44 megabps. So this is where you are subpar. And you see it's almost the same area that mmWave can offer in congested places. So this consistency of experience on the right-hand side of the slide is really offering this smooth experience to your subscribers. So of course you deploy it only in those congested places, which means that you have created islands of capacity. It's like, you remember maybe the old guys like me, we had islands of 3G in a sea of 2G. And then 4G was the same, we had the sea of 3G with islands of 4G. Here it will be exactly the same, You will create as an operator islands of capacity in a sea of mid-band 5G. And this is exactly what, for example, Nakamura-san explained, to put exactly those hot zones. Some people call it hotspot, but for me, hotspot is a coverage of this room. Like hot zone is what we are covering in the hall 3, is like 200-meter radius and 200, 300 meters radius. So only we calculated, Bell Labs Consulting calculated that in the UK, hypothetical operator in the UK could deploy only 2,000 of those hot zones and reach on a daily basis 24% of their subscribers. Which means you don't need to do a lot of those, but you need to do that very carefully, like Brian explained, in the Times Square of New York, in the stadium, in the airport, in the indoor shopping mall, exactly where it matters. And the result that was shown by Nakamura-san was second to none. This is where you get those 1 gigabps downlink and uplink in super busy locations. So for you as an operator, it's a net zero investment, because when you densify, you would not densify with mid-band, you would densify with mmWave. So it's a choice, so you are not investing twice. And also, by the way, you are investing in energy-efficient base stations. Therefore, you are going to save 70% of your power consumption. So to wrap up, I will skip this slide. We did this study. You can come to our booth to see this demonstration. This is RF planning, where you can either use, I would say, mmWave cells to power not just the campus locations like the stadium and the train station, but also the corridor leading from one to the other. So to summarize, you have seen a lot of examples from all around the world, but we are seeing examples also in Europe. So mmWave is definitely coming to Europe. I will show you something from Team Italy in a second, just because they could not attend, so they want to send us a very nice gift from Team, from Italy. We have other areas in Finland, in France, in Germany, and Eduardo will come back on a very important Paris La Défense project that they are doing with Cellnex. So with that, I would like to summarize by saying 5G mmWave is now a commercial in all parts of the world. There is a mature device and infrastructure ecosystem. Christian will explain that just after me. The subscribers, they do want a super quality of experience in the crowded location, and they are ready to pay for it. And really, 5G mmWave is the cheapest solution to cope with this extra capacity. And there are more to come for consumers and businesses, as you have heard from the operators in Europe. So we invite to see you on our booth. And now, a little gift from Telecom Italia. Please play the video. Thank you, Telecom Italia, and thank you, everybody.